Hey, to whoever may need this nugget of encouragement, things will be alright, so quit your worrying. I get it, the odds seem stacked back against the wall, but even consider it such, know you'll stand tall. Sat and watch from the sidelines one too many times. Wicked games we play make me wanna lose my mind. Found solitude knowing it'll be over soon. Ever need a boost, count on me for the 1-2. Trouble don't last when the tough get going. Baby, all we do is win, so show me my opponent. Adversity, doubt, stress, could care less, cause how we handle those like an S on our chest. Super proud of how we held it down on the way up. Can't wait for our day to ball, this is a layup. Nobody ever said this would be easy, but trust when I say that you got it. I know you've been looking for a breakthrough, trying our best to make do. Every day is something new, but change gon' come, oh yes it's true. Brighter days are straight ahead. Follow me, won't be misled. Just look up, don't hang your head, and we'll get to the promised land. Somebody loves you, please don't forget such. Take your time, no need to feel rushed. We gon' shine somehow one day. word to O'Shea, today's been a good day. Don't let one bad apple spoil the tree. The fruits of our labor seem ripe, can't you see? A little insight so they'll never dim your light. Been wrong for too long, this here feels so right. Leave your fears in the rear view, right now on the mission. Trying to stay the course on this road to redemption. Giving up seems tempting, but no need. Cause I got you and you got me. A little UNITY will get us by. Through the storm and the rain, I'll be by your side. Look alive, the best has yet to come. Just some words of wisdom, plenty more. I know you've been looking for a breakthrough, trying our best to make do. Every day is something new, but change gon' come, oh yes it's true. Brighter days are straight ahead. Follow me, won't be misled. Just look up, don't hang your head, and we'll get to the promise, yeah. And it may seem like things ain't working out, but I know we gon' find a way without a doubt. Just hold on a little longer, you gon' see this through. I've been there, certain things always remain true.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lou Reviews, your destination for critical thinking in the realm of the unexplained. If you haven't already, please do us a favor, smack that like, share, subscribe button, and ring the bell. That way you know when we go live, which I think we're about this close to coming up with a schedule. So just be patient. It's coming, okay? One thing at a time. For example, a lot of people have been asking me about the music. We had all the 3 songs that played at the top listed there in our playlist now, so you guys can check that out and Google those artists if you want to download these songs. So beyond that, if you really love the show, I'm also toying with the idea of putting old UCR episodes up, because people have been asking, and I got a request, and I have a feeling it was very strategic, the request. You guys sent the one person that would really make me consider it, and I am considering it. Possible. If I do it, it would be for basically historical records, and so, people could go back and look at what a whole cadre of people that were on my show have said over the last, I guess it was 2.5 years, especially with the Big Phone Homes. God, that's like 50 hours worth of streams between all 3. And yeah, people really, really want to see them again. And I'm split. I'm conflicted. I don't know what to do, because I don't want to just put them out there for everyone to just not understand where they were coming from and what context those videos are in. And I think the only way that people would get that is if it was behind some kind of paywall. Like, that's the only way that I can ensure that people who actually want to go there and watch it are doing it with knowing that all of that stuff is basically propaganda. Old propaganda that I am not very happy having produced. And that's why I took it all down. Because I didn't want that propaganda out there. I don't want that propaganda out there. And the only thing putting it behind a paywall is sort of ensures that the person who is going to watch it is doing it with good intentions, but it doesn't guarantee it, of course. Yeah, I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. I don't want to put a paywall stuff up. You guys know how I feel about paywalls, but at the same time, I'm getting a lot of requests for it. And there are good reasons why that stuff should never see the light of day again, but there are also a lot of really great moments in that show, a lot of really great interviews in that show, a lot of, if you really wanted to build a really great timeline of sort of the 2017 narrative and how someone who has an experience and started out really with a belief system and sort of work their way to a point where they saw all of these red flags and all of this stuff and all of these personal experiences drove that person to a point where he's like, okay, I really got to look at this incredibly rationally and throw out everything that is not evidence. And when you throw out everything that is not hard evidence, there's nothing. There's nothing there. And so, that sort of made me really question my experience and what happened to me. So, the last year and a half doing this show has really been sort of trying to feel out what I'm going to do. I didn't want to just give up the channel, right? I worked really hard for it, and I also just like doing the show. I enjoy doing it. I don't know. That's just kind of where my mind's at, you guys. I could go on forever. I don't want to do that. But anyway, thanks everyone for being here. I truly appreciate it. If you do love this show, we do have a Patreon you guys can check out. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the show. It really goes a long way. Also want to just really quickly give a quick shout out. Let me see here, to Jonathan Fredericks, who subscribed 2 hours ago. Thanks for the sub. Appreciate it. And yeah, you got to Lou review old UCR clips. That might be a way of doing it. Sounds like a grift, Lou. I know, that's well, I don't want people to do that, but this isn't a bad idea. Maybe we'll do one a month or something, or one every other week. If the news is slow, or when the news is slow. How about that? When the news is slow, we could go back to an old UCR episode, and yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea, I'm Kelly. I kind of dig that. And that way, yeah, we can just, stop the interview when we want to and talk about what was just said. And my reactions to them, especially, like, oh, God, that'll be super embarrassing. That'll be god awful. Oh, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't want to go back and watch these episodes. Ugh, cringe city. Absolute cringe city. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. But, I think someone else said that last week, so I can't take full credit. Yeah, I think somebody else did. Yeah, it's true. I think somebody else did mention that. Okay. So what is today's show about? Good question. So today we're going to be talking about and viewing the entire Sean Kirkpatrick UFO UAP interview with the NSSA, detailing the fraud, trickery, and the growing number of intelligence officials who genuinely believe in UFOs. And that's all with circumstantial evidence. And that's sort of the scary thing. And we'll get into it here in a little bit. And also, we're going to talk about the DOD, the AARO office, finally sends out a tweet from their Twitter handle, and they have an interesting request. And then also, a former lawmaker calls Ross Coulthart out on his bullshit. So let's get into it, guys. Let's get into it. I think what we will start with, and I'll go to that one in a minute. That'll be what we'll end with. Oh, and by the way, Wise Monkey, yeah, I've been reading all of these back and forths with PsyOp Daniel, who I mentioned once the other day in a 2.5 hour stream, and he decided to unblock me and unmute me to engage. And I was like, no, not. That's why you see, I have said, I think just one thing on this entire thread of back and forth, because I know his arguments are always bad faith arguments. They always are going back and forth and making excuses, and it's okay over here, but it's not over here. It's okay over here, but it's not over here. Here it's not okay. Here it is okay. It's just like, man, make up your fucking mind. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And that's what I meant the other day when they have these bad faith arguments. But anyway, I don't want to go into that again. Let's go to my bookmarks here. Okay, so the first thing let's talk about is the AARO office tweeting out. Let's switch to our famous Blue Reviews, whatever they call this, waiting room. I don't know. So the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office tweeted out 8 hours ago, our historical work continues. We welcome any former or current U.S. government employee or contractor with firsthand information about the USG programs or activities related to UAP to come forward. Please contact us at aaro.mil. I guess that's aaro.military/nothing. We want to hear from you. And there were a lot of replies to this. One from Dan Warren says, have you been given access to and made an assessment of the remainder of the gimbal that cuts off abruptly? Did he get a response from AARO, Dan Warren? I would think no. But yeah, that was my answer too. All right, so, well, I mean, that's basically Kirkpatrick goes over in this interview. Okay, so yeah, a lot of interesting, I guess, responses to this that we don't need to go over. But it is interesting that, and again, this idea that the AARO office can't be trusted, or, why should any intelligence official go to this office? First of all, if you had those fears, Dr. Kirkpatrick is gone. Now there's new people that head the office, and that was a planned thing. Nobody got fired. Nobody got pushed out. That was a deal going into the job. Hey, I only want to do this for a couple years, set everything up, and then I want to get out of here. And now the new boss is in there. I can't remember his name, but I know there's a new guy in there. Let's see here. The protections within the NDAA and the protections from Congress would enable anyone who's part of these supposed, alleged, trust me bro programs that reverse engineer alien craft, to then turn into our tech, that have dissected and mutilated and, examined alien bodies, have made deals and treaties with alien species, have had underground fights with laser beams with aliens, like all of that stuff. You could go to AARO, tell them your story, and you would be protected. So Bob Lazar, I mean, this is the only example. And again, especially when you dig into Bob Lazar, he's just lying about pretty much everything. But let's just for a moment say he's telling the truth. Let's say he had an element, and let's just say it was element 115. And he walked into Senator Gillibrand's office and sent an email to AARO, maybe a couple of minutes before he walks into her office, explaining exactly what he's going to do, and to meet him there because he's got evidence and he wants to ensure that he's going to be protected because he's in a public office. So if they're in that office, they have to take notes of what's publicly said in her office. There's no hiding it. He's actually going to whistleblow. So you bring that element to the senator's office, you email AARO at that public address that they just sent to the entire world, and you bring in your element 115. And you say, Senator, here's the element 115 that I illegally stole from the United States government because I thought it was the right thing to do. And I feel like these illegal reverse engineering programs should be exposed to the world and everyone should know about these things. And here's the proof right here, Senator. I need protection starting immediately, because this is world-changing news. And I'd like to have a press conference. I'd like the AARO officials to come here and take a look at this. If it's an element 115, again, like, there are ways to verify this stuff. Here's my credentials. Here's my paperwork. Here's how to verify this is element 115. It can't just be a moon rock. Like, it has to be legitimately the element. He would not go to jail. He would not be arrested. And if he did go to jail, let's just say Lockheed Martin's like, no way, man. Boeing's like, we know exactly what to do. Not funny. Kind of funny. And scary. The American people would go batshit crazy, especially if they arrested him. And if the information that he has is classified, I imagine they would arrest him in the same fashion that they arrested the guy who leaked classified information on a Discord a few months back. Helicopters and tanks and multiple agencies knocking on your door for simply leaking classified documents, not about UFOs, just stuff that other people should not have seen. And yet, Dave Grush is walking around, no problem. Bob Lazar's walking around, no problem. Well, you guys, there's a new boss in there, so we've established that David Grush did not trust AARO. He provided testimony to Congress and the ICIG, but he couldn't go to the office that informed by the people that he used to work for to tell them the first-hand knowledge of the alien stuff. Well, the big bad scary boogie monster Kirkpatrick is out. He's gone. It is interesting that this interview below that we're going to get into here in a second was released yesterday, and then today, for the first time ever, I think, maybe second time ever, this Twitter account actually sent something out. So the timing of that is interesting. I have a feeling, and I don't know, I can't verify this, but I have a feeling Kirkpatrick is playing an unofficial spokesperson to sort of lay out the groundworks for what this office will be doing for the rest of time or until the budget runs out. And I don't think, he addresses so many things. So we'll get into him because I don't want to put the cart before the horse here. Anyway, that's the tweet. That's what's happening with that. So if you're one of the people who told Ross, one of the two sources that told Ross Coulthart where the alien craft so large crashed in the earth, it was so big, they couldn't move it. So what did they do? This mystery government. They built a building around it. They built a sports arena around a crashed UFO without anybody noticing, without anybody missing the equipment for other projects, without any of the construction workers and custodial workers that work on the premises and help set up the facilities None of them spoke. Not one of them leaked where this craft so large it couldn't be moved. So if you're any one of those people that worked on that program or helped build the building, is studying the craft so large it can't be moved, you can go into the AARO office. You can go to DC and go to Senator Gillibrand's office in Warnock, right near her door, Rock. And if you don't trust Democrats, go in the Rubio's office. It's a bipartisan issue. You can go into anyone's office. Just make sure they sit on the proper councils and have the access to that information. Do not take it to Tim Burchett or Luna or Moskovich or Burleson. They'll probably just attribute it to a Bible verse and shoot their AK in the air, screaming Allah to God. So yeah, I would be careful taking it to them because they don't sit on the committees. But if anybody else, or email AARO. That would be the best thing, second best thing I think you could do. I think you could do both. If you have some really, really good, juicy stuff, take it to DC, one of those briefcases that's handcuffed or something, and email AARO as you're walking in. So that way, and you don't leave that office until you feel safe. I think that would be, if you're a serious whistleblower. Anyway, speaking of Ross Coulthart and lawmakers, this was the coolest thing I've seen a lawmaker do yet. And not technically, this is not an endorsement of this former congressman or lawmaker. Rep Riggleman, Denver Riggleman. I mean, that is a name, man. Denver Riggleman, former VA rep. So he's a, veteran affairs representative. So he helps veterans with healthcare. New York Times bestselling author of The Breach and Bigfoot. It's complicated. I'm interested. Former United States Air Force intel, host of the Mighty Peculiar Show on YouTube and Pod. Again, I've never heard of this congressman, so I don't want to endorse him, but so far, seems kind of cool. All right. He tweets out the other day, this right here, on March 14th. Let me get some water because this is a good one. So I'd be interested to see, again, United States Air Force intel, and he was a former, is he a current representative? Sorry, I think he's, sorry, I just have to look this up. I don't have a chance here. No, I don't think he's not a current lawmaker because it would be here, but I think he can still keep that handle. I thought he was former, and I am correct on that. Okay, anyway, let's get to the good, shall we? So, UAP James, one of the cult members, put out Ross Coulthart was told by a congressional staffer that there is direct first-hand witness evidence of a UFO retrieval and reverse engineering program in the U.S. operated by private aerospace companies and overseen by a small group in the defense/intel community. And this is the clip that Ross Coulthart put out there.
What I know.
I'll reload that for you guys. I know you didn't hear the first part. Here we go.
Street in Washington, and I'm looking around at the people around me and thinking, my God, you people don't know what I know. And I'd just come away from an incredible conversation with a staffer in the Congress who was telling me what they knew was going on. And it's revelations of direct first-hand witness evidence of a retrieval program and a reverse engineering program inside the United States.
So a staffer knows this, but congressmen who sit on committees and subcommittees, security committees, don't know this. Ross Coulthart knows this. The mysterious staffer knows this, but nobody within the intelligence community knows about these programs. Nobody. I wonder why.
Mainly run by private aerospace companies, but also overseen by a very small group of gatekeepers in the defense and intelligence community. I was walking down a street.
So spooky, these gatekeepers. Ooh, the gatekeepers. Oh, they're keeping all this information. They've been doing it for 80 years successfully. Oh, the gatekeepers are so spooky. It's almost as spooky as the, the aviary or the, what's the other one? The silent or the invisible college. Oh, spooky, mysterious. It must be real. It must be significant if it is real. Wow. There must be gatekeepers. Wow. And yeah, okay, so this former lawmaker tweets out, "Give up the name or shut up. We've reached ignorant singularity at Grift Maximus." Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Amazing. Shut up. Who's the staffer, you ass? You pompous ass. You maximum grift. Griftus Maximus. Ross Coulthart. Griftus Maximus. All hail Ross Coulthart. Griftus Maximus. You, oh my God, dude. And you guys fall for this shit. And when I say you guys, I'm specifically first person that pops into my head is Jay from Project Unity. And then the second person, and I love this person to absolute death. And I don't want to call him out like this, but Grant Levac, you need to start asking this guy better questions. Because he's telling a lot of trust me bros and tall tales that we just have to go, oh, wow, okay. It must be true. It must be true, everyone. It's Ross Coulthart. Did you hear that accent? Sounds official to me. Well, it's not. And somebody who is in the United States Air Force intelligence is saying, give up the name or shut up. And this is what this guy does. He goes from show to show to show to show to show to show to show, going, ooh, I've spoken to this person, and look at the gatekeepers, and this staffer told me this, guaranteed me it's real. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. Or trust me, mate. It's authentic. That's the international version of trust me, bro. Trust me, mate. It's authentic. Yeah, you try to pull that one off, Matt Ford. You can't do that, you untalented hack. You be funny. Zero shot at that. There's as much evidence for UFOs as there is evidence of you being funny. That was pretty good. You know. Okay, so that's pompous ass Ross Coulthart. We've spoken and dedicated enough time to that guy. That is for sure, in this week especially. Let's give it up for the man of the hour.
Intelligence, scientific and technical.
And, like I said, sort of unofficial spokesperson of AARO, although I don't really say that. I have a feeling, hopefully, not hopefully, I hope he keeps this up. I hope he goes on a lot more interviews. I hope he clarifies as much as he possibly can. I would like somebody to ask him, well, we'll get into this. It kind of answers my question. But anyway, let's listen to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. The link for both parts of this interview, it's got a part 1 and part 2. I've included in the description below. I'm not going to put up the fair use because it's on Twitter. And, but it did come from James, and it was, I always forget what the NSSA is. National Space Security Administration, I think. National Security Space Association. That's what it is. National Security Space Association. So this is a Space Security Administration meeting or sort of interview talking about, space safety in the future. But the big thing that they really highlighted here is the UAP discussion, the UFO discussion. And man, does Kirkpatrick get really nice and specific in some of these. So let's just get into it. This is just the introduction.
Strategic Command.
And by the way, this isn't the best.
Director of Intelligence and D&I representative at U.S. Space Command. He also served on the National Security Council
sort
staff.
of presentation.
Dr. Kirkpatrick
And
is the
even
recipient of
the
several
guy who posted
scientific,
this even
military,
admits
and
that here. So
intelligence
he's
awards.
sorry, I suck at
Sean,
live
thanks
streaming.
for your service and thanks for being with us today. A quick word about our format. Dr. Kirkpatrick will provide some brief opening remarks about the recently released AARO report on the historical record of U.S. government involvement with unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, Volume 1. Following his remarks, I will ask questions about that report. Members of our audience are encouraged to submit questions by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. I can't promise I'll get through all of your questions, but we'll at least get through some of them. We've allotted a total of 1 hour for today's interview, so let's get to it. Without further ado, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here with my national security space colleagues, especially as I bring closure to one of the last deliverables of my final government assignment. As you know, AARO was given two missions, operational and historical. The operational mission is the most important as it deals with the safety and security of our operators, our national security spaces, and our nation. The operational mission aims to minimize the risk of intelligence and technical surprise. The historical mission, and the topic of the recent report, is focused on investigating allegations of a government conspiracy to hide reverse engineering programs of extraterrestrial technology. That mission was also to review all previous investigations, activities, and studies that the U.S. government has conducted on this topic going back to 1945. While the final report is not due to Congress until June of this year, we had decided to break up the report into 2 volumes in order to get the bulk of the information out to Congress in Volume 1 and to accelerate transparency and data sharing to the appropriate members. This report has both a classified and an unclassified version. The classified version, along with evidence at the highest classification levels, has been provided to the appropriately cleared congressional oversight committees and leadership.
These are the committees.
This includes the House and Senate Armed Services Committees, the House and Senate Intelligence Committees, the House and Senate Appropriations Committees, and House and Senate Leadership. Note that it does not include any other House or Senate committees or members not in that group.
So that he is telling you, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Moskowitz, Burchett, Luna, go kick fucking rocks, especially you, Burleson. You can get the fuck out of here with all your bullshit, your Bible thumping bullshit. Like, there are 8 committees, and the committees that he mentioned are the lawmakers that really got the classified version of this report. Everyone else, even if you're a lawmaker, everyone outside of those 8 committees and subcommittees do not get that report. They get the same report we get. The same report Matt Ford gets. The same report Gary Nolan gets. There are no other versions. Only 8 of the committees get that version. And AARO, of course. And that's important. Because when you hear these other lawmakers outside of those committees blabbing their mouth about all this bullshit, seeing this video and seeing that and add bodies and whatever the fuck they're spinning, because they're so stupid. They're literally the bottom of the barrel when it comes. Not that lawmakers are really smart, but they are the least smartest. Moskowitz, fucking Burleson, Burchett, Luna, and what's that other dickhead's name? Gates. All of them are a band to nowhere. Absolute morons. Bottom of the barrel when it comes to Congress, and do not come close to sitting anywhere near on one of these committees. Gates did, but they kicked his ass off of it because he's a fucking nutter. He's a nutter. So that's important. That's important. Especially if you hear a lawmaker. If they don't sit on any of those committees, their opinion is worth squat. It's as good as an asshole right here. You know what I'm saying?
As I've said since day one, my team and I would follow that evidence where it leads, wherever it.
Torso, it's not a flip, man. It's where's the evidence? Where is the evidence? Where's the evidence from you guys? Where is it? Go watch my other shows. Maybe you can catch up to us, man. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue.
Where it leads, and that I would be open and objective to any hypothesis as long as the data supports it. Unfortunately, we live in a world of double standards where the reverse is not necessarily true, and people don't want to accept what evidence suggests when it is counter to belief. This report's not going to change any of those people's mind. And you can tell them apart by how loudly they cry out and how personal the attacks become, because that's usually the fallback position when there's no evidence to the contrary. I'd like to point out that there are many people who came forward privately to discuss their observations and concerns, who provided invaluable testimony, and who provided valuable historical information at the risk of personal condemnation and continue to remain anonymous. Those people have our thanks and gratitude.
So that tells me that there is an element to this that is mysterious, or at least confused these people that walked into this office with the information that they had. And they wanted to stay anonymous. And Kirkpatrick is calling them out and saying they were an enormous help. Because it sounds like whatever information they did get from them, they were able to verify and go back to those people and say, hey, we can't tell you what it was, but you weren't wrong, but it wasn't alien. And I think those people maybe got some, hopefully, those people got some closure on some of the things that they saw. And so I think him giving them a special shout out, making sure that their names stay anonymous because they came forward bravely and provided and were vulnerable to a stranger in Kirkpatrick. In some cases Kirkpatrick knew them, the people that came into his office. So I think that speaks volumes for me. I don't know about for Torso here, but we'll see.
As a reminder, I can only talk to what I did up to retiring. We're not going to speak about the operational mission today, so we'll focus on really this historical report. And so with that, let's dig into your questions.
Thanks very much, Sean. We'll now turn.
Real quick, I just also want to say that this was an open forum where people got to ask questions. Fuck, I wish I was there. I wish I'd known this was happening. I didn't hear wind of this. And by the time I did, it was already played. And yeah, I think I'd signed into one of these. Can't remember which one it was, but I got into one about a year ago. And yeah, my question got asked. It was awesome. Like, it was really great. So this is and now I've got all of my alerts turned on. So anytime a conversation from this does happen, from the National Security Space Association, or whichever order that goes in, hopefully I'll catch it next time. And if Kirkpatrick does another one, maybe we could get some questions in there to clarify. But there was a lot of great questions asked, so let's go.
I'll turn to Q&A. And again, for our audience, please feel free to submit questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. I see a handful have come in already. Let me start with a fundamental question. Dr. Kirkpatrick, to the best of your knowledge, has the U.S. government ever been in possession of extraterrestrial technology or non-human beings?
No, and we have found no evidence to support those allegations.
Here's what's great about that answer is the first words out of his mouth are no. Not, well, you know, or there are cases, or anything else outside of no or yes, and then your reason as to why you think that. Not interested in. And that's what I love about Kirkpatrick. I mean, you're like, well, based off the shit I've looked at, no. No. There's no hesitation there. And there's no delay. And there's no, well, what if? None of that garbage.
And let's dive into some of the key points of the AARO historical report that was recently delivered to Congress, as you mentioned, and published on the Department of Defense website. The report states, and I quote, AARO found no evidence that any USG investigation, academic-sponsored research, or official review panel has confirmed that any sighting of a UAP represented extraterrestrial technology. All investigative efforts at all levels of classification concluded that most sightings were ordinary objects and phenomena and the results of misidentification. Can you elaborate on that key finding?
Sure. So this really points to all of the studies that were done going back to the earliest days in the 40s. There were dozens of these kinds of studies and reports on single events or entire series of events, such as Blue Book. Most all of those turned out to be exactly what is stated there. They're all ordinary objects or phenomena or the result of misidentification, but none of them turned up any evidence at any classification level that anything to support that any UAP represented extraterrestrial technology.
The historical report also states, and I quote, AARO found no empirical evidence for claims that the USG and private companies have been reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. AARO determined, based on all information provided to date, that claims involving specific people, known locations, technological tests, and documents allegedly involved in or related to the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology are inaccurate. How did AARO reach that conclusion? And in that regard, can you discuss relevant issues associated with that finding, such as UAP non-disclosure agreements, the involvement of a particular CIA official,
This is great.
an alleged intelligence community document, claims that a military officer touched an off-world craft sample, and other relevant matters that were laid out in the unclassified report?
Sure, that's
Amazing question. Just want to quickly shout out Rocky with a $6.99 donation. Thank you so much. I almost fell for the garbage. We need to help people get out of that cult. All of the mountain of lies. All of it is a mountain of lies. I agree. 100% on that. All of it is a mountain of lies. Thank you, Rocky, for the support. Thank you for being here. I agree with you. And also just want to give a quick shout out to the old fake Lou Elizondo. Says, just kicking back with a big fat Cuban cigar and a cold one, folks. I love that this guy is a regular, not only here, but pretty much every fucking show that is out there. I love it, dude. It's so damn funny. I hope Lou looks into the mind control topic, intel and parapolitics like Tanner Boyle does. We have. Yeah, and that's a dead end of counterintelligence. A lot of counterintelligence and misdirection. So I would be careful if I were you, Pavlova, into believing some of that stuff. But maybe one day we'll dive into it.
That's quite a lot, but yes.
If you do want to dive into it now, I recommend Emily Louise, and her show is, I think, called Weird Reads with Emily. Go check out her YouTube channel. I promise you she has a ton of content on the whole mind control programs and my labs and all of that stuff.
Yes, we can. Let me try to elaborate on some of that. So the finding is, as the finding states, right? There was no evidence to support that story. So the storyline, which I think I highlighted a bit in my Scientific American article, but is also laid out.
I think I know. I know which Rocky this is, man. Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. After this comment, my own involvement still makes me sick to my stomach. I'm actually shaking just thinking about it all. Don't trust them at all. And yeah, I mean, Rocky's been through some shit, especially when it comes to Lou Elizondo. I would go check out the interview he did with Steve Cambion. And maybe one day, hopefully one day soon, we could get him to do another interview. But yeah, I mean, these people fuck with your head. Like, they really mess with your head. Especially with the people that they send after you. Yeah, I think if you're in that mindset where you're still scared or you're still worried or you're still antsy, just always remember and always think about how stupid, silly, unprofessional, fake, and just a ball of lies that the people who make you feel those things are. They are absolute garbage. So if those are the people that are making you feel that way, I hope that you try and remember that they're just a bunch of guys playing pretend. They don't know anybody. They're not connected to anybody. They're not smart enough to run or have access to any of these amazing things. They're just a bunch of run-of-the-mill military guys who run amok within the system. Whoa, damn. Pavlova, wow. Thank you. $50 super chat donation. Holy cow. That's a lot of money. Thank you. I really appreciate it. We'll keep that one up for a while. And we'll... Damn. Damn. Thank you. Next time, please leave a comment. Please leave a comment. Damn. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Like, thank you very much. But yeah, check out Weird Reads with Emily. She breaks that stuff down so good. That's the first 50 we've gotten in over a year. So thank you. That is killer. I'll leave this now, everybody. You guys, please, like, thank you. With the emphasis shifting toward elevating the standards of evidence, would that pressure start to come from more from disclosure advocates toward bad actors? I it depends on how dug in the heels of those disclosure advocates are. Because if we're thinking of the same disclosure advocates, I don't see that happening. I see them digging their heels in even more. Maybe we get a defector here and there. I would love to see Sprague. I would love to see Jay from Project Unity defect. I would really love to see Jay from Project Unity defect. I would love to see Danny Silva defect. and wash his hand clean of this. I mean, you know, I'm sure I could think of a few more, but those are the first three that I think of. Like, could you imagine if they came on Twitter one day or did a show or wrote a blog explaining, okay, I'm out and I'm not going to pay attention to this anymore until there's something to actually pay attention to. So, yeah, I don't see it happening, but thank you for the donation. Thank you for the question. It's a damn good one. Let's listen to the rest of this. I know I lost my train of thought, but thank you guys.
Report itself speaks to a number of activities where there was alleged reverse engineering by the government. Government was unable to make progress, abandoned the program to industry. Industry kept on it and their own internal investment. And trying to figure out how to make it work. And then there was some effort made to bring that material back into government oversight. And the allegation is that CIA stood in and said no, pointing to actually very specific individuals. And that associated with all of this, you know, there was claims of a very high-ranking military officer who actually touched one of these, and that there was an extraterrestrial sample of material that was provided back to one of these companies to see if they could reverse engineer
PTSA.
or fabricate. What is fascinating about all of that is when you actually peel that back and you go talk to those people, like the CIA officials, the military the military officers, all of them put on the record and signed their name to it that none of that was true. It was all either fabricated or misunderstood, like the allegation that this particular military officer may have touched an off-world craft. He was actually working on the F-117 and it was in transit, and it was a piece of that he was speaking to at the time.
So the guy, it was what I believe this is Pennison that they're speaking of, where he touched the craft and it was a piece of the F-117. That's just like, dude. Again, it's somebody who doesn't understand what they're looking at, doesn't understand that this tech was made by human hands. Even though it may not look like it, it's human made. And again, I think that's the story that everyone is missing with these presentations and these articles and these kiboshing of the fantasy. The Department of Defense is confessing because the problem has gotten so bad, it's gotten so out of control within the intelligence community that they're really like, this is fucking dangerous. This has reached dangerous levels now. Because if you got people within the intelligence community believing this stuff, man, that opens up a can of really bad worms. And I think they are trying to squash this belief as quickly as they can with stuff like this. But in doing so, the Department of Defense is also saying, yeah, we got a lot of cool toys. We got a lot of cool hardware that people are mistaking for alien craft when they run their hands on it back in the 70s or 80s. They mistake it for alien craft when they see it in the sky or they fly by it in their F-16. That's what the Department of Defense is telling us right now. And to me, that is fucking amazing. But there's a flip side to that that's also really fucking scary. And we've spoken about this as well. I know I keep sounding like a broken record, but for the new people who are here that are finding the show, thank you. Subscribe, like, share, ring the bell. For those new people, the other side of that coin is a very real, very scary drone problem. And there was a clip, I wanted to talk about this clip, and maybe we'll play it at the end of the show. But this idea of Iran, China, North Korea, and Russia getting together and creating a drone that is showing up over American airspace, that is fucking terrifying. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. So cool and also scary that we have literal adversaries in our airspace above our heads, spying, taking notes, stealing secrets, and maybe one day attacking public spaces and public infrastructure. And the people within the intelligence communities can't be believing and thinking and having a very, very biased belief system to believing that those things are aliens, not our adversaries, because I've never seen anything move like that before. Yeah, you're not read in, dickhead. That's right. That's right. You've never seen anything move like that. Very few people have, and very few people will for the next, 25 years.
The extraterrestrial spacecraft sample actually has no chain of custody. It was alleged to have come from a crash in I think it was the 60s, maybe 50s, and was passed down, was bought, was then handed back over to a company to see if they could reverse engineer that. That piece of material had turned out to be likely a piece of aircraft material or missile casing from the Air Force. It had nothing to do with extraterrestrial. In fact, didn't match anything from extraterrestrial. UAP non-disclosure agreements are alleged to have been conducted either separately or under the Atomic Energy Act.
Now, we talked about this clip the other day because this clip did come out before I found the whole interview. So I won't comment too much here, but yeah, that the idea, that the NDA that is being put out there are no such thing as NDAs connected to UAP or UFO projects. No such thing whatsoever. There's not one NDA in existence anywhere that says anything connected to UAP or UFOs. Not one. The only one that does exist is the one for ATIP, which was a made-up program. It was a hobby. So it doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Or under the Air Force. And then really surrounding the NDAs are a lot of allegations about, threats of retaliation by death if they gave away this information. What's interesting about the NDA discussion is, first, there are no UAP specific NDAs, with the exception of there was a fake UAP program that we called out in the report that was used as training and a hoax. And so by the letter of the definition, that was a UAP NDA, but it wasn't a real UAP NDA. And the NDAs writ large, what a lot of people fail to account for is prior to about 2000, I believe 13, NDAs were not standard. They were all done per organization.
That's just the story. And static electricity is not alien. And them moving in slow motion, like people report that when they get into accidents. The mind can create some pretty wild things when they think they're looking at something alien. So I would just be careful. That's all.
Organization per service, but they all had Title 18 language in them. Title 18 is the language that is called out for consequences of disclosing classified information to anybody, but especially to foreign governments. And in Title 18, it does actually say if you give away classified information to a foreign government, you can be punished with a range of punishments up to and including death. That language got sometimes pulled out and put into an NDA up front, and sometimes it's just called out as Title 18 language. After 2017, all NDAs became standardized into 2 forms, and that specific language is no longer visible when you look at it. But if you dig into the title, that's an implied consequence. The point of that is, contextually, if you're a young officer and this is your first exposure to a lot of things in the classified world, and somebody puts one of these NDAs in front of you and it calls out punishment by death, that's going to stick with you. And if you're on one of these unfortunate people that may have victim to one of the fake UAP NDAs, that's going to stick with you. These are all pieces of a story that contribute to the larger narrative, none of which is true when you dig into it. It has different aspects that are colored by different people's perceptions and interpretations of a number of events.
So real quick, before he goes on to the next question, somebody, Skinny Bob said, so is David Fravor a liar? No. But David Fravor could be mistaken. David Fravor's probably mistaken. And pilots make mistakes all the time. And there's some things about David Fravor that are odd. The first thing that sticks out in my mind is he loved playing pranks on civilians. One of the pranks he liked to play was finding campers in the desert at night and cutting off his engines and gliding down to the campsite. And then as soon as he hits the campsite, he turns off the afterburners and takes off like a bat out of hell. It freaks the shit out of the campers, and then they get UFO reports the next day. So, when you listen to Alex Dietrich's retelling of that story, she thought at first it was a submarine and they were doing a live active military training exercise until they told her 100 times, no, that's not what it was. Wasn't that. You didn't see that. So I don't know what she saw. I don't know. I think they saw something. I think they experienced something, but I don't think it was an alien craft. I think it was ours. And to people who are not read into those programs, yeah, I think it's not out of the realm of possibility for, and I know pilots and military people say this all the time, but I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they want to test a new toy. Who's the best person to test it against? The best toys on the planet. And who owns those? We do. So to test those new toys against the toys that you already have, and to see what the pilots would report and how they would react, and all of that stuff is important intelligence to designing of the new toy. So it's not out of the realm. And people say, well, they would never do that. That's illegal, blah, blah, blah. What's more likely? That or aliens? So it's not that I don't believe them. It's just we could do better. We could do way, way, way better. Rocky says, I'm in. Time for the house of cards to fall. I'm on your team, brother. You're the real deal. Take serious balls to do what you're doing. Hey, man, I would love to get you on the show, dude. That would be killer. Maybe we could schedule something for next week. Because I know there are other things that Rocky has that he wants to share, so I'm interested to hear those things and talk to him and get his experience. Because I know it's an important one. So, hey, again, thanks for the Thanks for the donation, man. You don't need to do that anymore. I appreciate it. Okay, let's listen to the rest of this.
The historical report also states, and I quote, AARO assesses that all of the named and described alleged hidden UAP reverse engineering programs provided by interviewees either do not exist, are misidentified as authentic, highly sensitive national security programs that are not related to extraterrestrial technology exploitation, or resolve to an unwarranted and disestablished program. Can you elaborate on that? And I've got a couple of follow-on questions with respect to that particular quote from the report.
Yeah, to some extent. So this is, there were a large number of programs that people named, right? So they would come in a protected environment. As the authorized disclosure authority, AARO could receive all of this information. They would tell us what they thought they.
That's a good question. Who is Rocky? Go check out Steve Camion's episode with Rocky. He interviews Rocky and goes through who he is. He's a friend of Lou Elizondo and played some interesting recordings of Lou. So, yeah, go check him out because he's like me, sort of got used and manipulated and then sent a whole bunch of crazy people after in his name, so, the old average UFO stuff. So, yeah, I'd go check out that episode on Steve Camion's show if you want to know more about him. But yeah, I can't talk about it here. It would completely derail the show, and I don't want to do that. Tune in next week. Maybe he'll be on the show.
But they knew. Yeah. They would name a program. At that point, after they finished their interview, right, that information that we hold, we have to protect it as if it is real until we can find it in, the DoD, IC, DOE, NASA universe of special access programs. So we have to protect it as if it is a special access program. When you go and do the research on a number of these named programs, many of them turn out to be don't exist at all. And when we say don't exist, we mean not across DoD, IC, DOE, the National Archives, the Service Archives, the Combatant Command Archives, the Intelligence Community Archives. There's nothing there for anybody out of any records. Some of them are real programs, but they're real, highly sensitive national security programs, not related to extraterrestrials, that we then have to.
Again, right there, he's telling you some of these programs are real and they're very highly sensitive. And yeah, sometimes people that shouldn't see them and they confuse them for fucking alien crap. Like, that is awesome. That is awesome. That gives me a little comfort that, hey, we got some cool stuff. We've got some really cool stuff. But I also hope that those discoveries and those tax dollars actually trickle down back to us in the form of, hey, maybe we could save a few shekels on some energy, or how we get around. That'd be nice. I know it's going to be a 25, 30-year thing, but hey, let's get cracking on this, shall we?
To protect and report, and that's what we've reported up to congressional leadership, right? Here's the list of programs that are being talked about that are not extraterrestrial, that you need to be concerned about, because that is a risk to programs. Right? These are real.
Thank
risks.
you. And as part of the discussion in the historical report, there's reference to a prospective special access program, or PSAP, called Kona Blue. Can you talk about how that figures in the historical assessment and broader set of issues in this case?
He chuckled. I wish this was on YouTube. I couldn't find it on YouTube. I would, but he gets a kick out of this Kona Blue, because I think this is the thing that the Kona Blue program, I'm sure, is the thing that David Grush talked about, Lou Elizondo talked about, Chris Mellon talked about, Eric Davis talked about, Hal Puthoff talked about, all of the believers, Tom DeLong knew about it. I'm sure all of these guys knew about it. They're like, man, wait till the public gets a hold of Kona Blue. And turns out, we're about to find out about Kona Blue. Let's find out, shall we?
So it's well known and well documented out in the world of the story of how Senator Harry Reid, wanted to set up a special access program with the Department of Defense to protect alleged information that the then ATIP OSAP program was supposedly uncovering, and to provide a compartment under which the alleged spacecraft could be returned to government oversight. So the big concern here from Reid and from Congress was, if this program existed, there was no congressional oversight. So he sent a letter to the Secretary of Defense and said, hey, we want to set up this special access program. Secretary of Defense said no, and then had a review of the program with DIA and Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, and said, yeah, not only are we not going to do that, but we're going to stand this program down, because this has nothing to do with aliens and extraterrestrials. This was supposed to be something else. Senator Reid did not necessarily stop at that point. In fact, did not like that answer, and so reached out to his colleague, Senator Lieberman, who had a connection in the Department of Homeland Security, to try to get the Department of Homeland Security to stand up this program. And a prospective special access program is a proposal. It's a proposal package that is put together by a group of people to stand up a special access program. That package then has to go through coordination, and it goes through general counsel, and it goes up through the SAPCO director, the special access program office director, and to get approval. And Kona Blue was that program. They had convinced, Reid and Lieberman had convinced the DHS to put together that program, that proposal. That proposal was written by some of the same group of people that came out of the previous program after it was shut down. And so that entire package we found in the DHS archives.
Wow.
Researched it a year ago, and then worked over the last year prior to my retirement to get it declassified and to get it out. I actually sent a congressional notification to the Hill last summer when we found it, and then had briefed it to them, to the Hill, several times since then. It is now out in the report, and that package is in its final review for public release. It has been declassified and is almost ready to go.
See, I cannot wait for that to come out. And this is exactly why last summer, all of those senators disappeared after he showed up on the Hill and gave them the Kona Blue project that they tried to make into a special access program that, to get to that level, it has to go through multiple layers of approval and then be stamped by the guy at the top. And it didn't come close to that approval process. Not close. But the people who wrote the proposal are the same assholes who were running OSAP and ATIP. And then when it didn't get approved, that was probably the administrative terrorism. Oh, they're stonewalling us. Oh, this and that. They don't believe in werewolves and dino beavers. Why won't they approve this? Like, come on, give us the money. Give us the protections, give us a special access program. And they're like, no, this is bullshit. And there is an archive of that bullshit in the Department of Homeland Security. And they read through that fucking thing and they're like, oh, this is perfect. This is perfect. You got Senator Harry Reid and his cohort to galvanize and lead the effort to do this shit. And it failed miserably. Miserably, thank God. But today, it's either gonna happen or we'll get this close to it not happening. And I think this effort, that report, that unveiling of what that bullshit was to lawmakers last summer is the reason why none of them came forward when the Schumer amendment came up. None of them came to defend it. None of them came. And I was asking the question, I was like, well, if this is such an important bill, if this is such an important amendment, why aren't any of the senators on the proper committees, security committees that we went over, the 8 of them that Kirkpatrick mentioned, how come none of them are coming out in support of this amendment? And it's because they got the breakdown of the Kona Blue and, the blustering that lawmakers got about this program, the bullshit that was whispered into their ears about this program. So they developed AARO, and then Kirkpatrick's put in charge of it. And he's like, oh, are you fucking kidding me? This is perfect. This will perfectly show these lawmakers what bullshit they're being fed. And they have all gone fucking quiet on this topic. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I cannot wait for that part of the report to come out so we can dissect and dive into the shenanigans and the bullshit that Harry Reid, because that's the thing that a lot of these believers and a lot of these people that stick up for Lou, oh, well, Senator Harry Reid, he was a majority leader. He was so respectable. He didn't believe in this stuff. Listen to what he said publicly. But then you've got privately, behind closed doors, him pushing for this shit really, really hard to a point where now, years later, we find out the shit that he was pushing was bullshit. And I mean, bullshit to the nth degree. And he fell for it. And for a while, so did Rubio, so did Gillibrand, and many others. We're kind of starting to see why now. And so that's why I'm taking what the Department of Defense says as true, because the documents are coming. They're not here yet, so right now it's speculation. But this guy's telling you these documents are coming. He told us about this report a couple of months ago. We got it, and he wasn't wrong on any of the things that he said. He wasn't wrong. They put it in this report, and people complain, well, there's not enough science. What science, man? There is no science. That's why there's no graphs, there's no charts, there's no, shapes, there's none of this shit. Because none of this stuff is important, because when you really dig into these programs, when you dig into the special access programs, I think this Kona Blue is going to really show people how this stuff gets ballooned out of control. And I think that's going to be really fucking helpful. Really helpful. So, yes, thank you, Dr. Kirkpatrick, for that. Definitely. And if he has done more, and I will credit Charlie Parrish with this one, because it's true. He has done more for transparency, truth in the discussion related to UAP and UFOs than any other whistleblower ever existed. This guy's done more. How funny would it be if this guy pulls a high neck? I'm wearing my high neck sweater. And in 2 years, he's like, these things are totally real. That would be a mind fuck. If he does that, I'm going to be so pissed. But I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he's going to do that because I don't think it's not the 60s anymore. And stigmatizing this discussion doesn't help the military anymore. It doesn't help the intelligence community anymore. It doesn't help our national security system anymore. It's actually a detriment to stigmatize this now. So I don't think you're going to see a physicist that worked on the programs doing what Hynek did 20, 30 years ago. So let us continue.
So that is where that program came from. And it contributes to this story. Why? Because we had several interviewees come in who named Kona Blue as the program that is housing the reverse engineering and the non-human intelligence bodies of these craft. And that is absolutely not the case. In fact, the program that was proposed to set up 6 centers, research centers. One was consciousness, one was technology, one was propulsion. I don't remember what the other two or three were. And they were all going to be run by the existing contractor. So I think that will be in the program plan when that comes out, and everybody will have that. But that's where that came from and why it contributes to this story, because then, come forward in time to now, and interviewees are naming Kona Blue as one of those programs, and it's not.
The historical report states, quote, AARO assessed.
So again, this is a program. The reason why this program hasn't been really talked about, nobody's really sort of had an eye on it or made a big deal out of it, is because this was the program that Dave Grush and others, whoever walked in to the AARO office and testified, this is a program I would assume that came up multiple times within these meetings. And so they dug into it. And they found out exactly what the program was. And then when they went back to the people who reported this program and said, hey, listen, we found the program. Here's what it is. We're going to unclassify it. We're going to make it public. And we're going to let lawmakers know that this was a faulty program with a lot of bad information that you fell for. And the reaction to that sometimes is, oh, fuck, that sucks. Right? And then you go through the 5 stages of anger, really, is what it is. And then some people reject it and get loud about it and say, oh, they didn't believe me. They're liars. They're not trusting anybody. They're lying about the programs. They're not looking into them. They're and it goes on and on and on and on and on. All the rhetoric that we've seen leading up to these reports, way before these reports were even mentioned, we were hearing how bad the office,
of sightings,
how nobody trusted the office. They were setting these seeds years ago to today. So when their bullshit gets called out, they could say all of these things that we went over, the other day with the Matt Ford episode. It's just a bunch of bullshit. It's them lashing out. It's their belief system not being able to decipher and accept new information. And Kirkpatrick has mentioned a few times, not only in this interview, but every other interview and report basically written, has been there is a segment that will just not believe it. They will not accept it no matter what information you put in front of them. And that's something I've come to terms with. But there are people who are on the fence. There are people who want the real information and appreciate the honesty. And those are the people and don't have a problem accepting the new information. Or if they do have an issue with it, it just takes a little more, with me. It just took red flags and a whole bunch of facts and friends going, dude, does this make sense? Does this make sense? And then of course the blackmail and all the other bullshit that came along with it. I was like, okay, yeah, this doesn't make sense. This is all bullshit. And now I'm thinking clearly about it. Again, the glasses are on from They Live. You're looking at the billboards, you're looking at the press releases, you're listening to the interviews, and it just filters in what's really being said now. I could completely avoid the cult trap and the things that they do to suck you in to make you think, oh my God, this is special. He knows a guy within the UFO legacy reverse engineer programs. He's a journalist. It's gotta be true. I trust him, bro. Don't trust him, bro. Don't trust him. Don't trust a fucking soul until you see it for yourself. Until it is verified by science. And it survives the murder board. Do not trust it. Or if you walk outside and everyone in the world can see, okay, they're real. They're here. Now let's have a conversation. You know? Like, till those things happen, just take it as a grain of salt.
Since the 1940s, have represented misidentification of never before seen experimental and operational space, rocket, and air systems, including stealth technologies and the proliferation of drone platforms, end quote. Can you talk a little further about this, including the historical context? In essence, this particular finding suggests that what many people may have seen is certain U.S. programs that either they confused with an extraterrestrial or some other activity. Is that what was intended by this finding, or how would you characterize that?
Yes, and there's more to it than it's just the things that people saw. You have to take into account, and here I have to really tip my hat to some of my researchers who did a really excellent job on kind of pulling the context together here. Keep in mind, in the 40s, the United States was just coming out of World War II, right? Everybody's raw. There's still sensitive feelings about being caught by surprise, Pearl Harbor, all the things that had gone into that era. The other thing that happened was there were some new technologies that were used during that time that hadn't been used in that way in a serious, significant fashion sense. Rockets, aircraft, other aerospace types of activities, balloons even. So people are sensitive to contextually being caught by surprise. There's really new technologies that are breaking into everyday life that they're just starting to wrap their heads around. And as you start to see these things pop up everywhere, people get nervous. They start reporting them. They start trying to figure out what they are. They don't know it. Now, there is a human condition that I don't, I'm not a psychologist, so I would have to defer to somebody who's better versed than I am. But there is a human condition of, if you see something you don't understand, and in the lack of an explanation, right, you are going to fill that void with a belief. What is that belief, and where does it come from? And this has been true, and it's based off of everybody's personal experiences. But they want to have an explanation to address the fear of not understanding what that thing is. And I think you're seeing a lot of that as well. And so what we're seeing out of that finding is the response to new technologies. And now here we are, fast forward today, and we have a whole bunch of new technologies that people are trying to wrap their heads around. Long distance drones that are starting to use new aerospace principles.
Listen to this right here. He's telling you straight up, like, there is some shit out there that people just can't wrap their heads around. Long distance drones that are using new aeronautical. What the hell did he just say? Like,
space travel. We're seeing more space launches, and AI, right? AI trying to wrap their heads around. Long distance drones that are starting to use new aerospace principles.
New aerospace
AI,
principles.
right? All
AI.
the things that are starting to space travel. We're seeing more space launches and more types of space launches that people don't necessarily understand. Do you know how many Starlink satellites and deployments got reported as UAP? I mean, dozens of them. Because people they see a string of lights in the sky and they don't know what that is, and you correlate that back to a Starlink deployment, and so we're seeing, I think, the same phenomena. I think we're seeing as a contributing factor, not the sole factor, but a contributing factor.
Thank you. And Sean, you wrote in Scientific American that, quote, AARO's interest, that is all domain phenomena, sea, air, and space, remains an ongoing concern to our national security enterprise, particularly when the phenomena are observed near our nation's sensitive military and critical infrastructure facilities. Observations by experienced military personnel, as well as data from highly capable sensors, are being reviewed by AARO accordingly to weed out explainable observations and expose truly difficult to explain phenomenology using the most rigorous scientific analysis available. This is the real job, you said, to minimize the risk of intelligence and technical surprise, as you mentioned before. Can you talk a little bit about, based on your professional experience, to what extent are America's adversaries involved in UAP-related activities? And is our lack of knowledge on this topic a result of adversary denial and deception? Or is it limited and effective sensors, that we don't have enough sensors in the right place at the right time with the right collecting the right phenomenologies, combination thereof? What do you think about that? I mean, on the one hand, the report categorically says, and you have said, that there's no evidence of off-world technology or off-world beings. At the same time, there are plenty of unexplained activities. So how do you think about that problem, and what has AARO done in this particular area?
So that's a good question, and this is where kind of the sweet spot of why AARO is important, right? Unknown means initially, when observed, people or sensors can't make sense of what is being observed. That doesn't mean it's unknowable. It means it's unknown at that time. And with sufficient data, even the most difficult of the unknown cases can be pulled apart and analyzed and understood. It is the hunt for the things that may represent a technological leap, or it may be not a technological leap, but something that somebody is doing to the United States that we weren't tracking before, like, Chinese high altitude balloon, right? You have to analyze and investigate and pull that data apart. It's not a question of, do we not have enough sensors or ineffective sensors? Absolutely not. We have more sensor coverage than you can possibly imagine. Is it a factor of adversary denial and deception? Well, they try, and they're good at some of the things that they try, and they're not so good at other things that they try. And it's a spy versus spy world and game, and we get on with that. This is a domain awareness problem, plain and simple. It doesn't matter if you're talking about UAP or you're talking about a stealth aircraft. This is a domain awareness problem. And what that means is we have a lot of data from a lot of different sensors. Whether or not we have data for a particular event is a different question. But in general, we have lots of data across lots of sensors. And we need to train the sensors and the data exploitation tools to look for some of the signatures that they aren't currently looking for. And what do I mean by that? Our our air domain awareness sensors are trained, and operators are trained to look for missiles, aircraft, fast moving, big drone, even large drones, not small drones. They're meant to look for those things to prevent somebody from launching missiles into the United States. They are not trained to exploit the data to look for a quadcopter. And so understanding what does a quadcopter look like in those kinds of sensor systems is part of the design space that we laid out starting when we stood up AARO, right? Is you got to go calibrate all of that stuff, and then you got to go figure out what tools you need to exploit it. So it's a long way of answering your question of my experience is there is a number of factors that go into this. Adversaries are trying to spy on us just as we're trying to spy on them. Does that mean that any given UAP could be an adversary? It could be. It's a question of, is it? And then you have the burden of proof. You have to identify what it is you're looking at, and you have to identify signatures that relate to a particular country. So you have attribution, and then you have intent. And those are the things that you have to go investigate if you're going to make that case.
Should AARO,
that was amazing.
DOD,
that was amazing. That was amazing. Just like Simon Fly's, was it Simon Fly? Yeah, he said Kirkpatrick is telling hard, cold facts. Like these sensors, this is a domain awareness issue. These sensors are not dialed into to look at this shit, and even some of our hardware is not designed to handle a quadcopter or a balloon or a drone. They're just not. So yeah, I mean, shit, man, it's getting interesting. It's getting interesting out there as far as technological advancements are concerned.
And the IC focus their limited collection and analytic resources primarily on UAP phenomena above or near sensitive U.S. military bases and training ranges. Why or why not? I mean, one of the questions is there a correlation of sightings that tend to be around certain locations, and are those locations where there are concentrations, military test ranges, for example, where high-tech new capabilities are being tested or fielded and the like. So what's your general sense of how we should allocate and apportion what are admittedly limited collection capabilities?
So there's actually three pieces to that question, right? So
I never ask a single question. It's always
there's your question leaves a lot of things we have to discuss, right? One, if you look at the heat map that's on the AARO website, you'll see that, and I've said this in testimony and I've said this in the public, right? You'll see that those are collection biased spots. That means, right, for those of you not tracking what that is where we have all of our sensors. That is where we have all of our pilots. They are the ones, and the sensors are the ones that are alerting us of thing activity. We don't have a whole lot of collection outside of that. So you can't draw the conclusion that there are higher probabilities of UAP around those institutions or those installations and training ranges, because you don't know what normal looks like. You don't have a pattern of life. You don't have a baseline across areas outside of those installations and ranges. And so again, AARO laid that out to go do. That was one of the things that we were working on before I retired. Because once you have that map, then you can tell, is there a spike in activity when there's a sensitive test going on? If there is, then you can draw the conclusion that there's a correlation.
Right.
If there's not, then you can draw the conclusion that you have a safety and a hazard problem because you have a bunch of stuff in your space.
And here's the thing also, because this is what Gary Nolan was complaining about, is like, there's no examples like this in the report that people can digest and look at and scientifically break down and go, oh, okay, this correlation makes sense. Because I think a lot of these things that they're correlating, these programs, the hardware, the software, the people, the places, a lot of these things, if not all of them, some of them are classified. And so you can't put that in a public report, but you can put it in the classified version of the report. And lawmakers on the right committees got the classified version of that. So they know exactly what these pilots are seeing and getting confused by. And now they can tailor laws and reports and censors and attitudes when people report these things a little differently. It makes sense. It makes sense. I know it's not sexy. It's not exciting. It's not aliens. I get it. But it is very advanced tech, our tech, and some of our enemies. But I think it's mostly ours. That's exciting. That is really cool. And so to know that these things are in ways going to trickle to us, these new technologies, that's exciting, man. Like, that's fun. And that's real. And that's coming. Like, that will be tangible soon. Aliens visiting will not be. It just will not be. It will never be tangible. It will never be reachable. And they're trying, at least from an intelligence community standpoint, get people who think that one day it will be out of the intelligence community. Because that is not the kind of people that they want within IC. So they got a lot of work to do, I guess.
That's just floating through all the time, and you'd be surprised what's in your air. So then you get to the apportionment of collection. The first and foremost thing you should probably all recognize as national security professionals is turning the intelligence community's collection apparatus onto the backyard of the United States is generally frowned upon. There is a lot of oversight that has to be put in place. There is a lot of protections that have to be put in place to protect American citizens and institutions against inadvertent collection. For somebody to say, hey, I keep seeing, something out in our backyard in the middle of Kansas, let's put all the collection onto the middle of Kansas, that is generally not going to be received well. So you have to plan carefully. Now, even training ranges, I think a lot of people probably don't recognize that training ranges are also, a large extent of them are over private properties. So flying training exercises for F-22s, F-35s, a lot of that occurs over other people's properties. So while it is controlled airspace, the ground is somebody else's ownership.
You could get this Heineck hoodie at Ryan's Sprague shop somewhere in the skies. This is where I got this hoodie. This used to be one of my favorite hoodies, but lately with all of the stuff, I usually don't wear this one anymore. But I figured, hey, can you imagine? They kind of almost look alike right now. I'm going to make one that says Kirkpatrick on it. Don't hold me to that. I'm not going to make a fucking hoodie that says Kirkpatrick on it. All right. Somebody else go make that. I don't have time for fucking merch. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to put my foot in the sand on that one. My foot. I'm going to draw a line in the sand with my foot on that one.
Ownership. So you can't just collect on that ad hoc. That being said, we
Okay, so this is the end of part one. So that being said,
on the fact that
so something, I don't know what happened here, but something did happen where I think they lost connection to the stream or something, and then a part two had to be made, and then the conversation, I don't know if it picks up in the same spot, but this last part I think has the most interesting part of this conversation, and the part that I think puts everything to rest here. So let's watch it. This has some awkward audio here at the beginning where it doubles. He's clearly having technical issues here, which is okay. I've been there. I totally get it. So no hate toward James, whoever James is, Steezy. This is on his account, these videos, so go check him out. I think it's the co-host here. So I don't know. I'm talking over this because I know I can hear the audio, the bad audio there.
What exactly was it?
Here we go.
There's some potential. There's some great witnessing, and by the descriptions of everything from water disturbance to motion, relative motion, and how you can maybe see what you're seeing. Unfortunately, what's going to happen is, I think that one, my opinion is that one is going to remain unresolved because there is no data. There is no radar data. Allegations of the secret black helicopter that came and picked up the tapes. None of that happened. There's no evidence that somebody pulled the tapes off. What does?
Right. Okay. So that story of them pulling tapes off the fucking Nimitz and immediately taking all of that radar information with helicopters that landed and guys in suits that came on. None of that shit happened. None of that happened. So whoever claimed that is lying or telling a trust me bro story that they heard secondhand from somebody else.
Does happen. And this is why we had to change the data retention policy. Was all of these platforms have fixed storage or a fixed amount of storage, and they only retain the data for any given mission, maybe a day, and unless there is a
hey Arden,
problem with the platform that they use the data for diagnostics for. And then the next time that platform goes out, the data is overwritten. So
there you go.
There's no conspiracy in that. That's just how the military operates with these data tapes and whatnot. So we did write new policy that said, hey, look, if you're reporting a UAP, you have to save all of that data and transmit it to AARO within some period of time. So I think the Tic Tac is so far back in time, there's no data. And we went and looked for all the data. But the other thing that I asked around a bit, which I don't know, it certainly hadn't been answered by the time I left, was, there wasn't a lot of asking or questioning of other activities that might have been going on at the time, either naval activities or adversary activities. And both of those needed to be explored at that time, because records of when tests, for example, were done that far back in time may not be accurate or exist, and records of any adversary activity, will be hard.
Again, he's talking about records from 2004. That's 20 years ago. So it's understandable if only clips of these things exist, and there weren't what's the word I'm looking for? There weren't procedures in place to where, hey, listen, if you do record a UAP, yes, you do have to pull that tape and you have to send it to AARO within an allotted time from when it's recorded. So we could take a look at it and compare it and put it in our database that compares all these things and tracks all these things. And learns more. Because if one of these things showed up in another case that doesn't have enough data, but you get the data on this case, maybe you can bring closure to this other one. So it's important now. Now the procedures are in place because, again, they're destigmatizing this thing because they see the harm that it's doing and the hole that it creates for our adversaries at the same time. So now it's time to close that hole for the adversaries, turn our sensors' attention to these parts of the sky and these things that look weird, and make sure that there is a process in place now going forward that, hey, if you get something weird, we want to take a look at it. We must take a look at it. It's required by law. So you can't fuck around with that stuff. But this idea of people coming, with the Black Hawk helicopters, the whole Men in Black story that I think Cahill and Elizondo and maybe Kevin Day and Gary Voorhees have told, like, none of that stuff happened. Whoever told that part of the story, and if I said your name and I'm linking you to that part of the story wrongly, I apologize. But it came from the Nimitz crew. Like, we heard it, I think maybe from David Fravor. I don't think we heard that from Dietrich, but somebody said that, and he's saying no, no, it doesn't work that way. So, that sort of tells me that there is no more footage of Gimbal, Go Fast, and Tic Tac. Those videos are super old. And as upset and as bummed out as I am about that, I understand. It's 2 decades old. Like, I was a young man in 2004. That was a long time ago. I understand why that is nowhere on any hard drive or any system or anything, anywhere. I totally get that. Yeah.
Be hard to track down for exact date and time stamps, right? And but
also, like, he's also saying that at that time, one of the things that should have been done was an investigation into the testings and or the adversarial problem that might have been going down at that time. That definitely was going down at that time. So those are two things that were not looked into enough by us, because the story was made fun of literally the next day. They were playing movies, Men in Black and all these fucking alien movies on the, internal closed caption television station that they have. Or closed circuit, not closed caption, closed circuit television station that they have on the ships and stuff. They were making fun of these guys because they reported it and they didn't understand it. And they're like, well, what the fuck was that? It now makes sense that it could have been a training or adversarial thing, because when they did take it to the very top, the captain, I believe it was, of the ship was like, yeah, okay, thanks, we'll take it into consideration. And that was it, because it was, maybe he knew exactly what it was, or maybe he just didn't give a shit because he had way bigger fish to fry. And these days, I don't think that flies anymore because, again, technology and stuff has changed. So
those are the kinds of things that you want to get. So we'd have to look at that. All right. So Go Fast actually was explained at the NASA panel. They did a really nice job.
Yeah, we don't need the full video of Go Fast.
Demonstrating that
we know what
parallax.
That is.
I think where I left that with AARO was to take the analysis from NASA, double checks everybody, and then put that out as closure. I don't know where the status of that is. That's where I left it. And Gimbal, we had hypothesized double check likely an artifact everybody, and then how the sensor operates, as well as looking at a known object, probably a jet, and then seeing how that a FLIR blurs all of that kind of information. And so the only way you're going to prove that is you actually have to recreate it in the lab. And so one of the things that, again, that I had tried to get started before I retired was to do that. Get the actual sensor platform or one of the laboratory surrogates and go recreate the entire scene in the lab and make sure that it does what we think it does so that you could close that out as well. I don't know where that stands today, but that's what I had intended then.
That is massive. And that is something that takes a lot of time to set up and make sure that the science is done correctly on. So there's your science, Gary Nolan. It's coming because it takes a little time. Unlike examining ball shavings, for you, that takes fuck you, do it yourself. That's how long it takes, right? Gary Nolan, Mr. Scientist. Like, these guys are actually putting that FLIR camera system, that rotating gimbal thing, in a lab and recreating jet flares to see if that's what happens. But basically, Mick West is probably right as to what gimbal is. And Marieke von Kloppenstedt and any other asshole who argues with this is gonna look like an absolute, you look like dicks now, but if you still argue when that paper comes out, holy shit, dude. Like, and it seems like they, based off of the math that they done, the knowledge that they have, the information that they have access to, and all of those brains combined, I bet put a hypothesis together, but are like, no. We need to do this shit in a lab. We can't put it on paper. We need to recreate this in a lab and maybe even film it and put it on display publicly. So that way gimbal is completely ruled out. So that tells me there is no longer version of gimbal, Tic Tac, and Go Fast. So the Big Phone Home 3 worked. It worked. Now we know for sure 100% there are no longer versions of those videos, which is nice to fucking know. Okay, we know 100% that Go Fast is going slow because of the parallax effect. And we're putting gimbal in a lab and gonna write a paper and show the math behind it. No YouTube video, no offense, because there've been a lot of great YouTube videos about this stuff made. But I think Mick West is gonna have like he always does. He's gonna be right. And I bet the math is right, but they're not going to rely on Mick West's work. They're going to put it in a fucking lab, not on a simulator. They're going to take the hardware that was on that plane, put it in a lab, and then see if the gimbal can rotate the way that everybody's arguing about. So let's put it to rest. I love this. And that request in Big Phone Home 3, where we were asking for the longer versions of Gimbal, Go Fast, and Tic Tac, we technically just got it yesterday. So it worked. It works. When you ask for the information, when you ask for clarity, it works. And I think more importantly, of course, just like the first two Big Phone Homes, it was a fucking drop in a very, very big bucket, the effort that I coordinated, and others like Jane and Mike helped me coordinate, and many, many other people beyond that. But it was a small drop in the bucket into the things that are happening today. I don't want to take credit, but I do love the idea that they are being more transparent, not because they want to, but because their hand is being forced. They have to shore up national security. They have to make it 1,000,000,000% clear to not only service member men and women of all of the divisions and all of the branches of the armed forces, okay, but the people above them, the generals, and the military decision makers, and then the politicians above them, and then the tippy top, the president. Like, everybody needs to know what exactly is happening. And then the public should also know. Like, and they are telling you. Now they are telling you because their hand is being forced. You're not going to hear this on that UFO podcast. You're not going to hear this in the Liberation Times or Jeremy Corbell or George Knapp because they're terrified. They don't know how to pivot. They don't know how to transition into what's coming. And what's coming is some really fucking cool tech and some possibly dangerous terrorist situations. That the future is going to be fucking nuts, just like the future always is. The future is always uncertain. It's always scary. It's always unpredictable. But that's what's coming. It's not alien visitation. It's not the cure for your cancer. It's not the cure for pollution. We have to do that. That has to be us. Humanity as a whole has to come together and figure out these big world issues. Aliens are not coming here and saving the fucking day on that. I promise you. Okay? And if you're resting your laurels on that to happen, well, I've got a great place you can donate to help you achieve that. Our Patreon, it's in the link below. Go check it out. And please check out the Do You Have the Guts tier or the monthly bill tier. And I think I can't remember what the one is between that, but there's one in between there too. So if you want to get stupid, please donate your stupid to my show. That would be amazing. Shit, man. So that's, I think, again, the big thing that people are missing right now with these reports. I think this is super exciting. I think this is the most exciting thing I've heard the DOD say in, I don't know, ever. Like, ever. They're literally telling you, fuck, like, there's shit in the sky that is ours that is really cool. There's shit in the sky that's ours that's really cool and dangerous. That's not us. And there's shit in the sky that like balloons and fucking drones and all sorts of weird shit that, god damn it, we really need to get a control of. Which I have a feeling like it's going to be really hard to fly a drone. It's hard now. Doing it in the future is going to be even more difficult, I think. Because they can't have this shit in the sky. They just can't. They need to be able to quickly determine what's friend, what's foe, and what's worthy of paying attention to. And they're literally in the process of that. They're passing the baton to the next thing. And part of that baton passing is them having to confess this stuff in their own little lovely way here. But it's still a confession as far as I'm concerned. And it's still data, it's transparency, it's clarity. Like, we're getting clarity on this stuff, man. Like, that is fucking... So it feels so good that we can finally put to bed. Is Lou telling the truth? No. Are there aliens in our skies? Nope. Sure isn't. There sure isn't. And there's going to be actual data that proves that. And I don't care what anybody says. There are some genuinely curious, genuinely scientific thinking, genuinely forward and progressive thinking, genuinely curious, that human curiosity. And I do trust that if any one of the 40-something people, according to Matt Ford, which again, I have no fucking clue how he knows 40-something people work at AARO, but if there is 40-something people working at AARO, I do believe that one of them snuck in that is trying to do the right thing. At least one. And if they find anything, I think we'll hear from them. I do. I really, really do. Because there's too much. There's just too much. It's too exciting of a secret for a construction worker of a building crafted around a crashed UFO ship. I think that would be too appetizing of a secret to not go home and be like, holy shit, boys, you wouldn't believe what I was working on today. Oh my God. You get this, we're building a building around a craft. So big, it's so fucking big, Teddy. They couldn't move it. They just don't crane. We put 17 cranes around it. They could fucking move this thing, Teddy. It's amazing. Like, you should see this fucking thing, Teddy. Oh, yeah, I signed some piece of paper that says I'm not allowed to talk about it, but fuck, man, I can't just not talk about this. I got 4 Budweisers in me already. Like, there's no fucking way. There's no way. Welcome to Lou Reviews. You know, like, this is the show. This is the show. Mondays and Fridays, 3 to 5. Ah! It's a schedule. It's official. Yes, it's official.
We have a number of questions from the audience. Let me pose a couple of them to you here in the remaining time. One question.
I said Monday and Friday, 3 to 5, right? That's what I meant. Mondays and Fridays, 3 to 5. Sometimes Wednesdays.
Is, have any UAPs demonstrated capabilities that are beyond our technical understanding?
No.
No.
And let's see.
I love it. Like, no. Nope. Next question.
So let me comment a little bit more on that. So
Yeah.
I love it.
That people think we're doing things like one of my favorites is the Puerto Rico one where everybody claims it goes into the water and out of the water and then disappears.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually not what happens. The FLIR, the way a FLIR operates is when the object is
listen
at
to
the
this
range, you know, it is measuring relative differences to the background. So it's contrast. So when an object is IR reflecting or cool to the same ambient temperature as the background or irradiance as the background, it will look like it disappears. And in this case, this particular object was both a factor of parallax, which has been recreated, and I believe the status of that is still being declassified or reviewed for public release. I don't think it's classified.
So more information coming on Agua Dia.
Temperature irradiance. You know, I had actually gotten the models for that system and had it recreate that whole thing, and it does exactly that. It makes an object disappear, and I think that is something that we're going to. I think NASA is looking at recreating, or NOVA. Actually, it's NOVA. NOVA is going to recreate that as part of their analysis for their series.
Let's see,
Nova.
a couple of
Nova, I believe that's the television program. They're going to recreate Agua Dia as part of a series that helps the DoD debunk this kind of shit. And I love it, dude. We're going to get more data on Agua Dia. And again, like, as a believer, that used to be one of my favorite cases. I'm like, fuck, dude, if we got the cockpit audio on this, that would be insane. But it's clearly the pilot making a mistake, thinking it's something different, tracking it with his camera, and when that object is especially going over cool water, the camera is trying to get this tiny little thing that is up against a bunch of colder water, and it's having a difficult time reading that, and so therefore it gives this illusion as if it's going through the water like a hot knife through butter. And it's not. It's not. So boom, Agua Dia, out of here. Go fast, out of here. Tic Tac, soon to be out of here. Gimbal, soon to be out of here. Like, all of this data is coming on these, you know? So that's why Kirkpatrick is so calm, cool, and collected. And he's just able to say, no. No. Yeah, we've done the math on that. Like, he's done all the work to behind that no. And people hate that answer, but that is the science. That is the science. And they're going to go a step further and put it in a lab. So I'm excited about that stuff. And again, I'm also excited about the future of like tech. Like, it's going to be so cool.
Other questions. There are allegations in the media that you were forced to resign. Are those accurate?
No, that's ludicrous. Both the Deputy Secretary of Defense put a statement out, Pentagon put a statement out. I actually told Deputy Secretary last July that I would likely retire by the end of the year once I met all of my goals and objectives for AARO, which I kept on our scorecard, which I briefed to Congress and to her on a regular basis. So that was not a surprise to anyone, and it was known since July.
Right.
And we have another question from the audience. Does AARO possess the legal access required, legal authorities required to retrieve information from government agencies or private companies about UAPs?
This is a big one, because this is the one that Matt Ford is hanging all of his bullshit hat on. I don't even know how you hang a bullshit hat. How do you make that? How do you wear that all the time? Like, anyway, he's got a bullshit hat and he hangs it. This is what it's mostly made of, is that, this idea that,
regular basis. So that was not a surprise to
that he got fired.
It was known since July.
And this right here, this question right here.
We have another question from the audience. Does AARO possess the legal access required?
The legal access required to look at this stuff.
Retrieve information from government agencies or private companies about UAPs, and or is there additional authorities needed to strengthen the ability to collect information?
Now, I get asked that.
That's a Matt Ford question. That's probably a Gary Nolan question. And he gets this question asked a lot. So that means that Christopher Mellon, God knows how many of the nutters asked this guy that question. Let's listen to his answer so everybody could go back to Matt Ford and be like, what the fuck are you talking about, buddy?
That question almost every time, and the answer is always the same. AARO has all the legal authorities it needs. It is written into law in NDAA 23.
There you go.
Had general counsel
and it is.
review it and put a statement out to that effect. We've had DOD and IC and other partners write letters that say we're all agreed this is how we're going to do this, and they're authorized to receive everything. And we've not had anything denied to us, at least at that time. As I left, that was all done. I had stood up with the SAPCO and CAPCO, a security construct to handle all that information. And I think the evidence of it working is the DHS PSAP, right? That was a PSAP in somebody else's authorities that we discovered and were able to work with them to get declassified and released.
So there you go. Yeah, that's bullshit. It's bullshit because they've declassified a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff is coming. Matt Ford, boy, oh boy, are you in for a rude fucking awakening. I wonder what Matt Ford's gonna do. We should probably take a poll. Is Matt Ford gonna dig in his heels, or is Matt Ford gonna pivot and accept? This show's going longer than 2 hours, sorry. Oh. I think I can fix this. All right. Polls up. Polls up, everybody.
There are several questions from the audience concerning a 2004 Nimitz UAP incident that one writer here says was widely covered in CBS 60 Minutes and other media. Can you comment on that particular incident? And the specific question that a number of folks have asked is that particular incident was not included in the historical report.
That's
like that?
So
that was the
tic-tac.
Right. And so remember, there's a volume 2 that will include anything that we didn't input in volume 1, which is not going to be a whole lot more, I don't think, but that's up to them to see what else it goes. But Nimitz is the tic-tac incident. And again, there's not a lot that you can put in there that's not already out in the public domain. So I wouldn't expect you're going to get a lot of resolution on that, but we'll wait and see what comes out.
We have just a couple of minutes left. Let me ask you to give you a chance to kind of summarize with this question. What does the history report tell you about U.S. government interest in and action on UAP sightings over the years? What lessons did you draw from the historical look that dated back many decades, and the reaction to events and how they responded to it?
Now, to be honest with you, I didn't love that answer for the Nimitz or for the tic-tac. But he's probably right. Like, all of the information's in the public domain. I think he could bring a little more clarity to that one, but with as much clarity as he's brought to everything else, let's see what the next report says about the tic-tac. Hopefully it'll clear it up, and that would be nice.
Responded to different events, et cetera. What are the right lessons to be learned from the history report?
That's a good question. There are a number of things to take away from this, not the least of which is that the complexity of the different contributing factors that go into the general belief and conclusion and continued persistent conspiracy theory it comes up periodically. So if you look back in time, the contemporary allegations that we're dealing with today had their roots 60, 70 years ago, and it waxes and wanes with some variation on that story over time. And every time, the little variations that go into that tend to not, bear fruit. They end up being not true. But the fact that no one will recognize that means that there's some other fundamental factor at play here. Because the truth is contrary to the belief. And so I think the thing to take away from this is there is a belief without evidence that is never going to go away. I think the thing that is most troublesome to me is the number of people that are in government that I may have worked with for decades that I did not know had that belief until they sat down in my office and told me, I'm not going to help you because you're part of the government cover-up of
this is so important.
Technology. And for somebody who I've known for a while and worked on highly sensitive national security problems on, to say that without evidence as a belief is disturbing.
Now, okay, there's a couple things here that I noticed, and gosh, I wish I had the body expert guys here with me. Who, by the way, wrote me an email. They're fans of the show. At least one of them is. So that's very cool. But I get a sense that Kirkpatrick is really frustrated here, and he's showing that frustration by the way he pats the table. Like, he really is just like, what the fuck? Like, I think this is where this is where the argument, I think, comes from between whoever he's talking about, the belief system, and the DOD. He's literally, he has a guy who he's worked with, who they've done highly classified intelligence work together. And he's coming into his office and he's going, I can't trust you because you are lying about the UFO UAP programs, and you're fuck off, basically. I can't believe you're doing this. And Kirkpatrick's like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we've worked together. You're believing that. What's the evidence? What evidence do you have? I'm sure this was a contentious conversation. And I've had very similar conversations, not only with my audience, but with people in spaces and with my friends who believe this shit. And it is, I understand that, like, well, God damn it, man. Like, I can only lead you to the water, and whether you drink it or not, that's on fucking you. And but instead it's like, I can only bring you the data that we do have. And if you don't believe it, well, I'm sorry, that's on you. That's on you. And until you have something absolutely amazing, shut up. Just shut up. Like the congressman said that we talked about earlier today to Ross Coulthart, just shut up. You saying you're not fucking gonna trust me? Because you think aliens are visiting us? Based off of what evidence? And that's concerning. That to me is the scariest part. Because you've got the Department of Defense saying, you guys, get your fucking head out of your asses. You're intelligence professionals. This is fucking embarrassing. That you think this shit is real, John Ramirez. That you think this shit is real, Lou Elizondo. That you think this shit is real, Christopher Mellon. That you think this shit is real, David Grush. You guys are at the tip of the spear when it comes to our national defense. What the fuck are you talking about? And it's a great question. And I think that slapping of the table is he's being honest. He's letting his frustrations leak out there a little bit. That's the most like animated I've seen him is of the table.
And should be a flag for the national security community. Because how can you then trust those people?
Right.
They are not.
How can I trust you, David Grush? That's why you don't have a fucking security clearance. Number one, you retired. But number two, you shouldn't have one. You shouldn't have one, buddy. Like, and not to get personal, but there's some personal shit in your background that if we really wanted to get ugly with this, we could. So shut up. Sit down and shut up. That's why the fucking Department of Defense is like, okay, fine. You guys want the fucking office? Fine. We'll make the office. I get it now. I understand. I totally understand this frustration. And it's not just like a buddy at a bar or a friend. This is like, this goes beyond, this is like a professional ignorance at the highest levels. And that's what I think this office is highlighting for everyone. And I promise you that maybe the reason why Susan Goff doesn't want to fucking talk about this is because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. In the Liberation Times, it's a stonewall. Matt Ford thinks it's a stonewall. It's not. It's a fucking stain on our national security system. It's a stain on our intelligence community. This is bad. This is really, really, really bad. That people would forego professional relationships where trust needed to be gained from one another to work on something important. And you're willing to throw all of that away because you think aliens are here? That's exactly what happened to us. That's why we're no longer friends with the UFO podcasts and Dan Zetterstrom and Ryan Sprague and all of these people who sold us out, who were our friends, who we built a professional relationship with on some level. And then when you find out, oh, wait a second, this is bullshit. And then you express your reasons why behind the scenes and you get ignored, ostracized, harassed, and a bunch of other things to go along with it. And that's happened to Kirkpatrick as well. And that's why I don't think he wants to be the face of the office, because he knew that's what was coming with this job. And he's one of these guys who's like, I don't want anybody to know my fucking name or what I do. Like, I don't want that job. Because it's a state, you're literally the punching bag for the Department of Defense on an embarrassment and fucking massive hole in the national security system. And I cannot believe that there are not national security journalists asking these questions. Whoa, wait a second. So, okay, there's no aliens. So what are you saying? What is in our skies? Why are you changing all of these procedures? Oh, man, it's frustrating.
They're not objective enough to understand evidentiary-based assertions like that.
They're not objective enough. They're not rational enough. They're not level-headed enough. They're not unbiased enough. They're not ready or willing to let go of the cult of belief.
Or lack of evidence in those assertions. How can you trust them with our national secrets? I think
valid.
That is a
valid
point of research by somebody else at another time, but I think that is certainly a concern.
Well, thank you very much. We are unfortunately out of time.
God, dude. Oh man, I wish he would take an interview with a Stephen Greenstreet or a Greenwald or me. Like, God, I would love to talk to Sean Kirkpatrick, man. I would love to talk to this guy and poke him on that. Well, okay, so, I know you can't tell us who it was, but like, how many of these people do you think exist within our national security and intelligence community apparatus? Like, and how bad of a problem is this? Like, there are so many, and I'm not even a journalist, dude. I can imagine what like a real journalist could dig into this if they could get Kirkpatrick in front of him, or her. Oh my gosh, man, this would be a big, big story, and they don't want this to be a big story. They want it to go away. They don't want anybody to dig past the surface on this one, because there's so many revelations and admissions in this that people are just completely missing the boat on, because everybody's bummed out that aliens aren't here. Holy shit, grow up, you Santa Claus believing adults. You fucking, I want to say Disney adults, but I know some of my friends are Disney adults. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Go somewhere else for your vacation. Anyway, that's the show, you guys. That's the show. Holy shit. Like, we get some clarity finally. Finally get some clarity in this discussion. And honestly, when I started this channel, I didn't think that the clarity was going to come from the Department of Defense. I really didn't. And I didn't understand how big of a problem that drones and our adversaries are. Like, this is a borderline imminent threat. Like, and the only reason why I don't think nobody's screaming that yet is because they haven't killed any civilians with the tech that they're using in our skies. But the second that they do, oh man, the world's gonna change, that's for sure. Big time. And I don't know if it's gonna be in a good way, at least not for American citizens. It doesn't sound fun, that world. A world in where we've got to be now in, like it's already in the back of your mind when you go to a big event or a concert or a movie even, or fucking God forbid your kid going to school. Now you've got to worry about shit coming at you from the skies. Dude, this is a big story. A big story. This is what Ashton Forbes should be screaming at the top of the lungs to the press about. Hey guys, you're missing the boat on this one. This is what Stephen Greenstreet is screaming at the top of his lungs about. Like, this is what Art Levine and John Greenwald and all these guys that are paying attention to this are advocating for, screaming about, or trying to bring attention to. Jack Brewer. Oh my gosh. Erica Lukes. Yeah, Steve Cambion. Emily Louise. Like, all of these people are bringing rationality to this discussion. And some of them have been doing it for a really long time. Some of them had just caught on to it. You know, some of us have now been doing it for a little bit over a year. So, yeah, tune in this coming Monday, 3 o'clock. We'll be here. And we'll be here next Friday, 3 o'clock. Same time, same show. And if something crazy happens in between those 2 days, we'll do a show on Wednesday. You asked for it, you got it. Schedule. All right? It's a schedule. You guys, thank you so damn much for hanging out. Holy cow, we got some big donations today. Want to say thank you in my own little way to those people who donated. Rocky, who donated multiple times. I'm not here, this isn't happening. Donated. Pavlova with the biggest donation of the day. $50. Unreal. Thank you. That is incredible. I'm telling you, it goes a long way. It goes a very, very long way. Everyone in the chat. Dana Shadell. Turn down that music just a little bit. Dana Shadell, Simon Fly, Archangel Reese, Bobby Broadway, Jason Parker. Did I say Simon Fly? Wise Monkey? Did I say Simon Fly? Michael Huntington? Lord Ludacris? Torso, thank you for being here. Bobby Broadway, Skinny Bob, thank you for being here. Drummer 3354, thank you for being here. We got the list of all three of these tracks at the beginning of the show, at the welcoming in waiting room show chill vibe music time. So if you want to get the list of all the musicians, we got the playlist at the top of the show. We've got our I'm going to put our Spotify link down below, which the Matt Ford Show will be uploaded tonight. This show probably uploaded tomorrow. So that way you guys can listen to this at the office, on the go, on your treadmill, whatever you're doing. You guys, thank you so damn much. Thank you so damn much. Please don't forget to smack the like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. That way you're notified when we do go live. But now you got a schedule, so now you know when to be here. 3 to 5, Monday, Friday. 3 to 5. Thank you so damn much. If you want to support with the almighty dollar like all of these fine folks did, we also have a Patreon link in the description below. Once again, thank you for embarking on this journey of discovery together. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and thank you so damn much for subscribing to Lou Reviews and helping us raise the bar. I love you all. Enjoy your weekend. We'll see you soon. Peace out.
But I know we gon' find a way without a doubt. Just hold on a little longer, you gon' see this through. I've been there, certain things always remain.